Alcohol has been with humanity for thousands of years. It has consumed at celebrations, gatherings with friends, and important events. Many consider it a way to relax and lift their spirits. But have you ever wondered what happens inside your body after that first sip? Why does a person become more courageous? Why does speech become slurred? Why do some people forget what happened last night and what happens to the brain, liver, and heart at that moment? Today, we'll take a detailed look at how alcohol affects a person and why its effects are much more complex than they seem at first glance. After a person drinks an alcoholic beverage, the alcohol begins to be rapidly absorbed through the walls of the stomach and intestines. Within minutes, it enters the bloodstream. The blood carries alcohol throughout the body, but its main destination is the brain. This is where the most noticeable changes begin. Alcohol molecules easily pass through the brain as protective barrier and begin to affect the functioning of nerve cells. In essence, alcohol acts as a brake on the nervous system. Signals between cells begin to transmit more slowly, and some areas of the brain temporarily function less efficiently. One of the most common myths is that alcohol makes a person smarter, more confident, and more sociable. In reality, something else happens. Alcohol suppresses the frontal lobes of the brain, the areas responsible for self-control, responsibility, and evaluating the consequences of one's actions. Because of this, a person begins to feel more relaxed. They may talk louder, joke more, meet people more easily, do things they would never dare do sober. But it is important to understand, confidence doesn't arise because abilities have improved. It is simply that the brain is temporarily less able to perceive risks and consequences. As the dose increases, other areas of the brain begin to deteriorate. The ability to concentrate decreases. It becomes more difficult for a person to analyze information, make quick decisions, solve problems, maintain attention. This is why the number of errors increases sharply after drinking alcohol. Even if a person feels completely in control of the situation, their brain is objectively already working more slowly. Studies show that reaction speed is significantly reduced even with relatively small doses of alcohol. Alcohol then begins to affect the cerebellum, the part of the brain responsible for motor coordination. This is why a person experiences an unsteady gait, loss of balance, tremors, difficulty with precise actions. This increases the risk of falls, injuries, and accidents. Many people think they can drive safely after a few drinks, but in reality, even a slight delay in reaction time can cause a serious accident. One of the most interesting effects of alcohol is its impact on memory. When alcohol concentrations become high, the brain becomes less able to retain new information. Sometimes a person can speak, move, and even appear relatively normal, but their brain no longer forms complete memories. The next day, so-called memory lapses appear. A person cannot recall individual events or even a few hours of their life. Now let us talk about the internal organs. The liver bears the brunt of the burden. It is responsible for processing alcohol and removing toxic substances from the body. Every time you drink alcohol, your liver has to work harder. If this happens regularly, liver cells begin to become damaged. First, fatty degeneration of the liver develops, then inflammatory processes can develop. In severe cases, cirrhosis develops, a disease in which healthy tissue is replaced by scar tissue, and the organ gradually loses its function. Alcohol affects more than just the brain and liver. It also impacts the cardiovascular system. After drinking, the following may occur: increased heart rate, increased blood pressure, irregular heartbeat. Long-term abuse increases the risk of serious heart and vascular diseases. It is especially important to discuss the impact of alcohol on mental health. Many people use alcohol as a way to cope with stress. However, the relaxing effect is temporary. After the effects of alcohol wear off, anxiety levels may increase. Regular consumption increases the risk of depression, anxiety disorders, sleep disturbances, emotional instability. Furthermore, there is a risk of addiction. Over time, the brain becomes accustomed to receiving pleasure artificially and begins to crave more and more alcohol. The next morning, the body continues to recover. The following symptoms appear: headache, thirst, weakness, nausea, decreased concentration. This is the result of dehydration, metabolic disorders, and the effects of alcohol breakdown products on the body. Alcohol doesn't just change a person's mood, it affects the brain, memory, coordination, internal organs, and psyche. The initial effects may seem harmless or even pleasant, but behind them lie real changes in the body as functioning. The more frequently and in greater quantities a person drinks alcohol, the higher the risk of long-term health consequences. Why do you think alcohol remains so popular despite all the known risks? Leave your opinion in the comments. If you found the video helpful, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and see you in the next episode.